I'm Jeff Bakke. I'm the CEO of HealthEZ, and I'll give you a little bit more information about that in just a minute. Rena gave me this awesome, whoop, I double skipped there, this awesome, sort of call it gambling slide. And in the last session when they talked about 85% of projects stuck in proof of concept, which is I'm sure in the IT world that might be 50%, but when you think AI being 85%, is this a good idea or not? Should we continue? Should we scale? I think that's really the point of you got to make some investments, you got to make some bets. And I think it's a good slide. I don't like making bets. I'm like, just for the record, I love Vegas, but I don't like in business thinking about it this way. It's constantly assessing ROI on these things. But nor do I think that AI is some all-in. It's not like e-commerce. And I think a lot of businesses had to make a decision whether they're going to go all in on e-commerce. I like, actually, Sashi and I were just talking about this, the concept of trying to build a business that would put you out of business is very near and dear to my heart. I like that. I've 30 years trying to be innovative, whether it was technology or business model, whatever. I do think AI has a chance to do that for a lot of companies, to put others in jeopardy of staying in business, similar to the way the e-commerce, kind of reinvented retail. I'm going to ask you at the end, especially those of you in the back row, what are the top artificial intelligence applications in your company? Because it's a smaller group, we can share a little bit, and I appreciate that. What are your key challenges? Where are you having the most sort of difficulty either getting started, getting things through into a proof of concept, or getting them out of proof of concept into production? And then last but not least, is there anything that you picked up today or yesterday that would kickstart your journey, back at the ranch, as they say? This is sort of, I think I've seen this Gartner hype cycle for about 20 years. It's really common. The highs are high and the lows are low on this chart. I think with AI, it doesn't really look this way as much. It's the third time in my 30 years that artificial intelligence was going to be a big thing. This one's different. It's very, very different, partly because the generative AI has sort of consumerized it, right? It kind of, the chance to interact with humans in a different way versus learning technologies. Machine learning has been around for a very long time. A lot of these concepts have been here, but they've been more back office, less consumer facing, the way, Chat GPT or deepfakes or pick your favorite meme generator, how that has sort of changed and evolved just in the last 5 years. There's a lot of building blocks and some definitions to talk about. Workflow automation, I think, is sort of rudimentary. I think everyone in the room understands that one pretty well, so I won't go deep. But a lot of times you're trying to take action on some information, and if you can't automate the outputs of that, you're not going to get very far. Even in the back office, non-consumer facing use of artificial intelligence. Big data analytics, business intelligence. Going back to this comment about 85% being stuck in POC, if you can't validate the outputs, if you can't measure the impact, if you can't determine the trend on certain business processes, this stuff doesn't work because you never trust it. And so just really impactful to have these basic building blocks in place. I think really important. One of the big investments we've made is to create a data hub. Big data, call it, it's cloud-based. The old days we call it a data warehouse, data lake, whatever you want to say. If you don't have your data in organized fashion, you're going to be in trouble. RPA, this is where I think when you get stuck with a lot of legacy systems or you have a lot of disparate platforms, robotic process automation can take, sort of tasks that run across various areas and various systems and automate those. Again, robotic meaning, we're replacing a human to do a bunch of different things across different systems. Document recognition and, I'm old enough to remember when OCR was kind of cool, like little boxes, and it would say, oh, that's a C, and I can get that right 80% of the time. That's not good enough. You know, we got to go back to keying from images and all this kind of business. We're doing some things right now I'll talk to you about with Microsoft's AI kit around documents that is pretty darn impressive, and it learns. I think that's the difference, it is not about recognizing a character. It's about taking a very crumpled up piece of paper and actually being able to pull the relevant information off of that document. We were doing this at WEX. You could take a picture of your CVS receipt or your Cigna EOB. This was probably 5 or 6 years ago, and it would file a flexible spending account claim for you, with very high accuracy, even though you've run the doggone thing through the mud. The stuff's getting smarter and smarter, and so the ability to outpace a human, taking a document and entering information, I think we're already there. Learning systems in the back, this is machine learning. If you're a payer and you care about claims, I promise you're already doing this. Some vendor you have is doing this all day, every day. I bet we have at least a dozen spots where machine learning is identifying, billing issues, coding errors, all kinds of different matters, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Natural language processing, this is just really the ability to understand a word. If you have any intelligent IVR, we call them, the industry calls them IVA now, intelligent virtual assistant. We have that, we use that to talk to providers. I'll mention that in a second here again. These things have really advanced now between understand a word to understand what you mean when you say these 3 sentences. And that is really, we get into the large language models, right? So you're moving beyond, interacting with code words and synonyms to you've asked for something very complex. I can understand it as well or almost as well as a human would and produce an answer. And of course, things like ChatGPT are now possible with generative AI because a consumer can interact with it. A human can interact with it beyond, I know the keywords. Every time you use Google, you're sort of participating in that, and they've been optimizing that forever. When you search for this, you really mean this. And it's constantly trying to get smarter and smarter. You could consider a search engine similar to AI. They just get better and better as more and more searches occur, and that learning process is what's so important about artificial intelligence. The big point here is, unless you're sort of a hardcore technologist, it really doesn't matter if it works, right? And we have a lot of vended products in our world. If they do what we want them to do and they're getting better all the time, that's what a CEO wants. And so, again, the classification isn't really as important as how much value it's bringing to the organization. There's a lot to be afraid of in this world. Came up a few times yesterday, this confident hallucinations. This is if you've ever gone to ChatGPT, and I would encourage you to do this, and said, write an article about Jeff Bakke's career. This is a very, what do you call it, sort of masochistic, whatever kind of, I promise I don't spend a lot of time on that, just to be clear. I don't Google myself, whatever. But if you ever just, do something simple like that, you realize how many times it gets it wrong and how confident it sounds when it gets it wrong. Thought I graduated from USC, that's not correct. Just because there was another Jeff Bakke that did, right? It's just consuming a lot of data, making inferences about it. I will give you my ChatGPT story. And this was the moment, let me just start with this question. Do you know what happened a year ago Monday in the world? You know what I'm talking about? A year ago Monday. It was a very big event. Hamas invaded Israel. That was not nearly as important to me as my oldest daughter got married that day, a year ago. Big deal. I missed Saya. Last year, I'm still taking heat for missing Saya a year ago. And one of the things you have to do as the father of the bride is you have to write a very compelling toast. at the wedding. And about 3 weeks before, I'm laying in bed, it's like 10 o'clock, my wife walks by and says, "Hey Jeff, how's that speech coming? It better be good." And I had my iPad with me, and she walked by, and I went into ChatGPT, and I said, write a sentimental story as the father of the bride about Ellen and Liam meeting at Marquette University, moving to Chicago, and wanting to get married. I think that was my whole prompt. I did not change that prompt. That was it. Okay, took me maybe 20 seconds, something like that. 5 minutes later, she walks by. The thing just, if you've ever used it, it starts writing as if it's thinking. It could just display the whole thing, but it just starts writing it. "Hey, I've been working on this for weeks. What do you think?" And I start reading it, and my wife gets a little tear right here. And I'm telling you, that was the moment I'm like, damn, this thing's pretty good. It's pretty good. I had to delete it. I swear to God I deleted it. I did not use anything from it. It would be very wrong for me to do that. But that was one of those days where you go, yeah, this stuff is really going to get very good. And if nothing else, it gives you ideas and whatnot. But it is wrong on facts. COVID-19, there was 415 AI models that were built to detect COVID-19. You can think of a perfect use case for this. All 415 didn't work, right? So you talk about proof of concepts that didn't make it. 415 proof of concepts, they never made it. I don't know if that was too much fear of liability, whatever. But again, sometimes these things really work and sometimes they don't. I don't know if you heard this morning, but the chemistry Nobel Prize went to a doctor in Washington and two guys that work for Google that built an AI model around detecting proteins. I'm not in that part of the world of chemistry and biology, but seems pretty cool, right? So sometimes it does. Skills gap, and this one, I think for any company, do you have the right people? Really hard, because there's visionaries, there's execution, you need a lot of different talent to make this stuff work. And that's why we rely a lot on our partners like SDS. And then the data quality element, which was good survey earlier. I think if your data's bad, your AI model's going to be even worse, right? Data privacy, this one probably scares me the most. We have a rule at our company that you cannot put any PHI into any AI product. I think Microsoft has a leg up here with Copilot because they're better at separating consumer technologies or widely available with enterprise secure, environments. And so, I'm not telling you what you do, but I like Copilot better than ChatGPT because I can draw a fence around it and make sure that it doesn't leave the building. IP and legal protection, I think the obvious ones are, I'm using Taylor Swift's likeness to say HealthEZ is a great company. Those are easy ones. Of course, that's a problem. But at what point is it a summary plan document owned by an employer? At what point is a data set that has client data in it, a big breach of intellectual property if put into or used by an external source like ChatGPT? I think those days are going to be more complicated and actually much bigger. And then again, we've put Elon Musk's face on a guy in a horse or whatever the hell. I mean, there's a lot of deep fake stuff. I don't think that's going to hurt our industry. I think what's going to hurt our industry is this really cool idea got sort of absorbed by an AI model and it got presented to someone else, and it was a big IP breach. Cost and ROI, again, did it work? Zillow had built an AI model that when a home's price reached a certain point, it would automatically purchase that house. So they're pretty smart. They got all the data in the world. They lost $300 million that quarter by buying properties that were garbage. And so it's sort of like, again, great idea, great use case, very innovative, not ready, right? And then last but not lastly, this is again, the, scale, and there were some good comments, I think, in the last one about how much do you trust it? Because when a human's wrong one time, you get stung a little bit, and when an AI model's wrong all the time, claims get paid wrong for months. You can just sort of imagine the impact of having something go off the rails that hard, right? So no commercials, but HealthEZ, we're a health benefits administrator, think third-party administrator, based in Minneapolis. We have about 100,000 members. We also have a network. It's a independent network in the upper Midwest called America's PPO. Just to give you a little bit of context about our business, so I can put some of these examples into perspective. We think of our strategy as having a great experience. Customer service would be a broad definition, but in our world, it's members and serving them very well, very high touch, very contra AI, in some sense. Talk more about that in a minute. Doing great for customers, great implementation, good support of customers and their brokers, and then serving providers as well. And so lots of things we do there. In the cost containment world, I won't work my way around the wheel entirely, but every one of these has a pretty good use case for artificial intelligence, and I'll give you some specifics in a minute. We think about lowering the cost of care. It is our primary mission is to, take $1 million of claims that may have happened or might happen and turn that into $200,000. We do that all the time. We're really good at it. We've got a lot of different solutions for that. And things like payment integrity, which you see up here is claim integrity, access management, which is navigation and steering, members to lower cost facilities, prevention, the long-term version of that, recovering third parties dollars from COB, coordination benefits, and stop loss and subrogation. And there's a lot of ways that we put money back in the hands of both the employer and the member. And then last but not least, and this is a hard one, is predictability. Because we deal with clients that have 50 employees, and one large claim is everyone's bonus for the whole year. And so we bring a lot of stop loss solutions where they can pay a premium each month for each employee that backstops that. Level funded product, if you know what that is. It's kind of small group benefit models as well as larger group self-funded product. And then a lot of analytics that show employers what's happened and what we think might happen, right? So again, we're getting into predictive sort of nature of reporting. Lots of challenges in the world of the third-party administrator. I could spend days on the things that are hard about my job. No, it's not that bad. But there are a lot of things that keep you up at night. There's a lot of things to work on. There are things that you got it working and it's awesome. You improve the KPI, it's tremendous, and you turn your back for a week and it plummets. And so a lot of management stuff. All of our world is this weird combination of people and technology and process. And I'm sure very similar to your business. Want to have revenues going up, want to have profits going up, want to have member satisfaction going up, want to have team satisfaction going up, could go on and on. So getting to the good stuff, some real things that we're doing, and I'll share them with you, and if there's competitors in the audience, congratulations, I'm giving you freebies, I guess. When we think about members, and this one, we did it it was probably a year and a half ago. We have a cloud-based contact management solution for $1. I'll tell you who it is after the session, whatever. That is pretty sophisticated. And one of the things that it does is it's listening, transcribing. We're actually watching what our agents are doing. So like what they're looking at on the screen as they move from different systems to answer different questions. Is this provider in network? What's my deductible? I think I might have brain cancer. All of those things are being managed. And we're watching that in real time with the caller and what they're saying. And our platform has actually got a little kind of bug in the corner that has a smiley face, a flat, and a frowny face. And it's listening both to the words and to the tone to go, wow, the satisfaction on this call, it started out really bad and it got really good. It started out kind of good and it went really bad. like, oh, my deductible is way higher than I thought. There's a whole lot of sort of trend in a typical call. We now have about 2.5 years of actual interactions between an agent and a member. And so we're using AI to make that, a more effective and kind of a more effective training opportunity for the agent, and kind of help them understand, well, things are going bad here. Like, I got to step up my game, right? We have a post-call survey, which has a very high take-up rate. It's like 18%. So we can match what the AI model thought with the actual survey results. And you'd be surprised how many times they were pissy at the beginning and pissy at the end and gave us 10 out of 10 in the survey. And they were pretty happy, but they gave us, a 4 on friendliness and a 4 on knowledge. By the way, any call under 9 gets reviewed by a supervisor. So again, it's sort of like you got to build in all these validations to see if the model is really accurately working, and then you train that model to be smarter and smarter. Engagement, content generation, and this one, we got some really smart clinical people and some very smart consumer marketing people. But what's the saying? It's like, if you copy one, it's plagiarism. If you copy many, it's research. And I think, AI kind of is that second one. And so, trying different things, again, getting that closed loop to say, how do I get a newly diagnosed diabetic to really sign up for the disease management program, engage in it, get their test strips, submit their blood sugars, all those kinds of things that go along with that. We use a lot of Gen AI for creating new content to get those people engaged. We also have a payments product called Easy Pay, and this one is sort of classical, go sign up types of stuff. And again, the Gen AI, we can sort of try different things and try to adapt those things to the frequency. If you send something to someone once a week, they're going to ignore it after the third week, right? So learning that and kind of adapting to how frequent we want to send those things, et cetera. A lot of that stuff runs through some models that we have. Advocacy, outreach, prioritization. So when we win a new client, which we hope happens a lot, one of the most important things that we do is to determine who do we want to know on a first name basis, and who do we kind of want to just know that we want them to know we're here, right? So the healthy 27-year-old, the 60-year-old has got 7 chronic illnesses. We prioritize that, and we use a lot of claim data to prioritize that. So we look at last year's utilization. We also add in and talk with HR and whatever to identify high cost future claimants and try to manage those better. Intelligent agent support. The asterisk is to say that we're sort of well known to be very friendly. It's not I'm going to just be honest. When I got there, it was like the first 6 months of too long on the phone. Like, nope, too nice. Like, just get this call taken care of. And we just heard from way too many customers. They picked us because we're friendly. And that's care management. It's, some of it's account management, but a lot of it is our member-facing service team, the member experience team, call center. We have an average speed of answer. It's 30 seconds or less. It's in an SLA, all this kind of business. We really want to pick up the phone. We'll never have IVR. We'll never have IVA. We probably won't even have a chat bot because it just isn't our deal. But, and it took a lot of time to get our team over this, we can make our agents a hell of a lot smarter when they're on the call. And that's kind of where we're using it to try to, again, I told you we had a couple of years of interactions and data. We're trying to use that data now to serve up instantly for the agent. Here's the answer to the question they're asking. You read it and you say it, right? Make your job a lot easier. You don't have to log into this and search for that. And that's really, when you think about call center automation or AI in the call center, that's where we're getting the most bang for the buck, and a lot of projects going on there to try to help that. If you know anything about No Surprises Act, transparency and coverage, those things, you know, a lot of companies have tools, vended tools. We built our own. Some days I wonder if that was a smart idea, but we actually have our own sort of price shopper tool. You know, you want to know what it's going to cost you to go to this doctor for this procedure with your benefits applied. It's all built into our solution. If you're not a claims coder, that is a lot harder than it sounds, because there's like 10,000 things in there. And so we're trying to, you know, use some AI to interpret some search words instead of the whole, I have to drill into, you know, I have to know the difference between, you know, orthopedics and pediatrics, and, you know, that gets really hard for Joe Lunch Bucket. And so we're using it there as well. On the provider side, we don't care how much they like us. It's a little bit tough, especially when we're running a network. They're just trying to get their work done, right? Some, you know, clinic in Florida where the hurricane's coming just wants to know if Joe is eligible has benefits coverage. So they're calling in, and we want to answer that question as fast as possible. And we have a learning, again, for another dollar, I'll tell you what that product is, that is in place right now in IVA that used, I think we put like 80,000 calls in it, and it's getting smarter all the time to say, this is what the provider wants, I'll get that information, and I'll read it back to the provider so that if we don't know them well, if they're in Minnesota, they're logging into our systems, or we're actually in their practice management system through some APIs that we have. But for smaller providers around the country, it's not uncommon for them to just call, right? And that's roughly 10,000 calls a month handled by the IVA. So a guy like me can monetize that in a hurry and feel really good about it. Credentialing and provider roster load. So I talked about the network. We have about 3,000 providers in that network. They send us garbage data. So you and I need to talk about this. And the format of that is, our network's 40 years old. So I imagine some providers 35 years ago said, how about an Excel spreadsheet? And we'll just hand draw something on a piece of paper. I have no idea, but there is no consistency. That's not true about some of the bigs, Fairview, Alina, if you're in town here, but there's so many small providers that are just trying to say, we added a doc to our clinic, please add them to the network. And that, you know, trying to make that more automated has been an AI opportunity for us. Integrated enrollment data validation and optimization, and, you know, this is frankly where we're relying on SDS. And for us, the ability to say, we don't care what you use, we're ready. You're using whatever Ben admin platform, our team will figure it out. They'll figure it out in a couple of weeks, which is plenty of time in the implementation process. It's one of those things that has gives an incumbent the lead automatically. Is if I have to change it, there's some risk, and we want to take that risk completely out. And so, you know, again, the ability to have resilience in that integration, to know and learn that, hey, I get 500 records a week from this company, and all of a sudden I'm getting 5. Something is wrong. We need to address it, right? SPDs, and this one I think is one of the best opportunities for a health plan. And also really hard. So you imagine the model is going to be like a first grader reading a summary plan document. It's going to take a long time before they're smarter than our employer services team at understanding what the benefits are and programming those in the claim system and the plan build. But that is a massive opportunity, you know, and it is the part we get dinged. If the plan document says this, the claim gets adjudicated like that, we're in trouble. We're in a lot of trouble, right? So really good opportunity. We're working with our claims platform right now. They can export and import plan build, and we're using that format and saying, all right, how do we get this free-formed content into a data set that is in the same form so that we can compare an SPD with the plan build information. And then the last one, and this one's very new for us and has been a bit of a game changer, is that as a third-party administrator, we have hundreds of vendors, telemedicine, PBM vendors, PBM carve-out vendors, PBM specialty drug vendors. You keep going. There is a massive list. And many of them invoice. They'll send an invoice and they'll say, these groups, these members, these groups, these PEPMs, these whatever. And it is a massive finance undertaking to get all that stuff sort of assimilated and then into the hands of the employer. We're using Microsoft's AI kit to actually read the invoice, convert it into data that can be imported is not the right word, but executed into our financing, platform, our funding platform. This is a homegrown system that takes money from an employer, invoices the employer, all those kinds of activities back and forth, and actually takes a snippet of the doc and brings it along in the invoice so that there really is no question that, we're doing our job, you're paying the right amount, vendors getting their money, employers getting pulled the right money. Pretty mundane. We're not curing cancer with this, but lots of people getting getting to do more important things. When it comes to cost containment, again, and these are areas that we both do internally and we're relying a lot on vendors. Pricing automation, really a key one here. The world of everything that comes in for this group is running through the Aetna network. Those days are over, at least in our world. It's not really how it works. There's always a lot of benefits that are carved out, transplants and this is a spot where I think AI has terrific opportunity to try to ultimately get the best price available for that service, given the contracts and rules of the plan. I talked about SPD to plan setup, fraud, waste, and abuse. We're watching this area. It's been around forever. I think I was doing machine learning in the debit card world about 20 years ago in the HSA, FSA, HRA space, trying to identify fraudsters. I mean, this stuff, it's very sophisticated. It's very mature. Technically, it's AI. It's just how effective is your vendor versus another vendor. Those are the questions that you want to really be asking. Bill review, code edit, things like unbundling, identifying unbundling where, a hospital gets paid, making up numbers here, $1,000 for someone to stay there, and that includes any over-the-counter medicines, and then you get a provider bill that has, $8 for an aspirin, $20 for a vitamin D, and whatever, and it's not going to be a person's ever going to do this job, right? But getting smarter and learning. Actually, I think if you know Health at Scale, they're actually identifying the providers that do those things more frequently and teaching their model how to be smarter about that. So to expect those situations in certain providers, which is, really augments that process. Medical necessity review, there's a lot of times, we had like a $3 million claim, which is a massive healthcare claim about a month ago. And there was about $200,000 of services that were provided that were not medically necessary. And there was about $150,000 that were not FDA approved. And you'd say, but did the patient need them? I don't know. The patient died. Saddest thing in the world. Things get very real, in these situations. But our job, of course, is to make sure that the employer and the member are paying as little as possible. And so we identified, and there's some AI tools that are helping us identify that. And then subrogation, and this is where you're looking at a claim pattern, you're getting smarter and smarter about identifying claim patterns that are actually a car accident, right? And there's an auto policy that should have paid first. Just an example of where, that kind of stuff can get used. When it comes to risk and predictability, there are really two products in the market today, Verikai and Gradient. If you're in the insurance business, at least in the self-funded world, one of the most difficult things is when you take over a self-funded group, there's a lot of claim data, and the employer owns that claim data, and it can be risk analyzed very well. and we're really good at that. We bring in a bunch of carriers, we have them compete, it's kind of a process. When you take over a fully insured group, no offense to anyone whose company is Buka, B-U-C or A, you usually don't get that data. They hold that data, it's a retention tool. And so the underwriting and the risk people have to make a guess at, this 100 employee group, how much are they going to cost next year? And there's a lot of artificial intelligence being used to take a census, just name, address, and convert that and their family members into the likeliness that they're going to have, a large health claim next year. And those products are getting smarter. They were terrible 2 years ago, and they're getting actually better and better all the time. Then, of course, we talked already a bit about predictive analytics. I think the fastest adoption and the most sort of willing adopter, right? So the least likely to leave something in proof of concept is the technology folks. And they're really getting quite sophisticated. When it comes to business intelligence, financial analytics, I don't know if you've ever taken a spreadsheet with no PHI, no intellectual property from your clients, and sent it to ChatGPT and said, find me some trends, and it starts telling you about this data. It's amazing. The data analyzer tool in ChatGPT, very good, very useful. Copilot, similarly. There is a lot of ways to take a bunch of data and try to get some intelligence out of it without having to be a data analyst. Coding and programming support, I told you about my oldest daughter. My second works for Alexa, and I had asked her, are you using AI? And she said, I have 7 different tools that generate specific types of code for me, which should kind of scare us a little bit, in those worlds. But they do, most developers, if you're not using AI to do some code generation, you're taking longer to build something than, the person sitting next to you. There's no question. We use a lot for test data generation. It's probably one of my favorite things. It's a tester usually has to sit there and dream up scenarios and type in, testing data to say, here's a production data set, go generate a bunch of test cases from it, de-identified, whatever, and then use that test data to validate that the system's working properly, super valuable. We integrate with, like I said, a lot of different vendors. The PBM one is the one that usually takes the longest and has there's a lot of testing and a lot of resiliency required when you integrate with a pharmacy benefit manager. In our world, we sort of take all the responsibility to make it work, and we get all the blame when it doesn't, even though they're the ones managing the pharmacy benefits. No complaints. You can edit that out later. But we really want that to work well, and so we're actually starting to use AI to conform file specifications, from one hand to the other as we do the handshake with the PBM. I had talked to a fellow from McKinsey like a year ago about the risks of PHI in utilizing third-party, including vendor, AI tools. And he said, you dummy, there's AI products for identifying PHI. You just have to run that data through it first. So it kind of knows about, PII and PHI related things, de-identification. You see even the secure emails now are getting it knows when you're not thinking about what you're sending, and it stops you and says, this is secure, we need to secure this email if you're going to transport it because it has a social security number or something in it, right? Similarly, I think those tools are getting more and more effective there. And then last but not least, if the marketing department wants to put something on LinkedIn about me, holding a big flag or standing on a mountaintop or whatever, you just type it in. It's absolutely ridiculous how easy it is to generate sort of graphical marketing content that is interesting, hopefully doesn't violate any copyrights. But it's just incredible how fast you can build out some imagery from some words. So with that, I am actually a little bit over. I'm going to ask the question, top AI applications for your company. I've shared a lot. for free. Anybody? Bueller? Sashi, you want to?
Yes. I think for us, genuinely, it's about making people productive inside the company. So every aspect of AI application we use will be on that. Right? So that's number one objective for the company. So that I see as top priority for us, and we are using that. But the second part about the key challenges likely to face is how do you manage the security aspect of when you have that kind of an intention, we are all in, how protective can you be and make sure, every step of the way you're protecting our clients' data. So that's a second part. That's where Patrick is focused to make sure any tool we bring in is validated. For example, we're going through it right now. He's literally going through 4 of them, scrubbing it, and make sure, we talked about Copilot being the protector. We are even more careful about it because our concern is some of the generic ones, if there's a violation, we would be in complete breach. We would use mostly SLMs for sure. So second part is security. I think the question, there's so many ideas for me. I am a junkie with ideas. Everybody says junkie with IT technology. For me, it's, I typically have a influence of one discussion going on, I have 4 ideas coming in. So I have so many of them, I think I want to rationalize them in terms of relevance, right? The conversations that I'm having here, right, when the clients talk, they create so much of energy. I'll just quote one example. I was talking about provider contract management. And that was my first idea in terms of, look, it will take off big time, put a ton of investments. It didn't take off. And through the dialogue that we're having in the last 3 days, a lot of the clients have come and said, hey, that's my problem. It's fascinating, right? So at the end of the day, it's really the client's input that drives our strategy. And I'm so excited that I need to rationalize that through working with my team to make sure where we fund it. So.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think it's really important. And the more technology-oriented the company, I think the better opportunity there is to go faster. And power tools may injure, right? I mean, that's a little chainsaw with a 3rd grader. You got to be super careful, right? One of the things that I really think is going to help this go faster for everybody is to look at how fast the model is learning. Like if it's a 3rd grader yesterday and it's a 5th grader today and it's a 7th grader tomorrow, I want to put all my money on that, even though it's not ready to talk to a client. It's in the right direction. If it was it graduated high school last year, it graduated high school this year, and it graduated high school next year, this was a dud, an absolute waste, because it's never going to outpace, a practitioner or a human that is learning all the time, and it is always kind of adapting to, the situation in that. And so trying to find ways to measure everything, I think really important. Anybody else want to share? Biggest, All right, then I'm going to go to the easy one. Anything specific you're taking away that you're going to do tomorrow? I'm really curious about that, other than take all these slides and kind of think about it for a while. I don't know. That's what I got like 50 pictures on my phone, so.
I'm kind of excited about using, because our company is also focused on the good customer experience through our call center, and I'm using AI to help the agents.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like.
That part too. I think that's really the customer member facing. I think that's really cool to keep that human interaction, but make them efficient and make that cut that time down, because there can go long. I've been on the phone. I think we probably all way longer than we want to, just to get to an answer. And I think that's a really cool way to be efficient. Yeah, keep that human aspect.
I agree. Whenever I get into a phone tree, the first thing I do is speak to a person. 0, 0, 0.
Exactly, as fast as possible.
Get to a person, and I think if I can get to a person quickly and have that person give me a cogent answer that actually helps me quickly, satisfaction.
Right, as fast as humanly possible. I'm with you on that. I'm not a very patient person in that regard. You know, there's not a ton. I mean, the customer service world is working on this, so every product is trying to figure it out. They just don't plug in anything that useful by design. It's a lot of integration work. I'm going to tell you that's the heavy lift. Is you know, the large language models understand the question, but the answer is buried in 12 systems. And the person you're paying to give great customer service is flipping between those screens or looking at you know, maybe you've already invested to pull most of that data to a customer service interface, and they're working from that. But you know, it's an irritating pause between when you ask your question and then they ask you how the weather is when you know. They're just trying to get to the right system and get to the right screen and get to the right answer. And I think a lot of that can be sped up by interpreting the question with AI, with computer, basically with the large language model, because they don't speak in computer language. You know, it's not an SQL query that they're saying. They're saying, I don't understand why my deductible is $4,000. I thought it was $3,000. Something has to interpret that to say, pull up the benefits, you know, information for that member immediately to the agent so they can answer that question without having to go search, you know, for that kind of an answer. I don't think we're alone. I think a lot of healthcare, whether it's provider side or payer side or you know, even the clinical world, I think Dr. Castro was talking about, you know, I got to get the notes back and I want them to be very consumable. It's sort of answering questions and, you know, try to keep the consumer as informed and engaged as possible. I think that's going to be the first step is one hand of the handshake is going to be more automated. The other hand's going to still come from a human being. I think that'll go for a long time. When Tesla was rolling out their self-driving cars, and everyone's like, I don't think I could do it. When elevators were invented, there was a person who would drive the elevator from one floor to the next. It was sort of, you know, it started with ropes, and then it was even when there was buttons they would drive, and it took literally 10 years for the population to get comfortable getting into an empty elevator and pushing a button and having it move. You know, similarly, you know, if the first time you bought something online, your hand was like shaking when you were going to push that buy button because your credit card was in there, and is it going to work? Am I going to lose my money? Is the product going to show up at my door? You know, now it's too easy. It's like a problem how easy it is. And I think this is the same sort of thing, but I do think one of the first steps will be merging the human interaction with just better, you know, intelligence that comes from the computer, and you know, safer way to deploy it and get past the POC, right? So, good. Any other comments, questions before we jump? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I do want to take a moment. Thank you, Jeff.
You bet.
I know that we will not have the whole time, but the relationship we share is on common ideas, which is about, I would say, innovation. Most of my conversations are about how are they innovating, how are we innovating? Is there a combination of that?
Yes.
And the fact that we can ideate and brainstorm and also have an ability to share with an audience wherein it's more a community, it means a lot. Thank you.
You bet. You bet. Thank you, guys. Thank you.